Hey everybody, Carrie Ann King here again, a second day in a row because this is just an awesome week for guests. And today I am really excited to have for you Patty Dann, who is here to talk about her new book, The Wright Sister, along with other things. So let's just start right here, Patty.
Hi, Carrie. It's so great to be here across the country in this strange time. So I'm happy to answer any questions or read, whatever you like.
Oh, awesome. And it's exciting. I love that. These times are not good, except one of the things that I do love is this connection that we are having with people who are far away, which I just think is super cool. I've been getting to meet people that I might not have otherwise met. Because, well, we're online because we're not elsewhere, right? So
yeah, it's this crazy time of feeling so distant, and yet here we are, and perhaps we never would have met otherwise. So
right, exactly, and I'm so delighted to have met you. So I'm just very first, right off the top, I'm going to really cover the book because I have my copy. You can hold yours up too. We'll have dueling. Okay. We have Wright Sister copies, and then there's one on the wall behind her. So. Your colors look nicer than mine. Is it your computer?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, yours is supposed to be a different blue.
Oh, you know what? I have, this is an ARC copy. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe they changed the colors up on the real, who knew?
They did, but it's sort of sky blue because it's about flying, but maybe they change the sky a bit.
Yeah, maybe a bit. Well, the sky is different every day, so you never know. Hey, we got Michelle here with us. Hi, Michelle. Michelle's from Idaho. She's awesome. She goes up regularly and asks great questions and things. So here's the thing. What caught my attention about the Wright Sister is that I'm feeling bad about this now too, because I'm sure this was the story of Catherine's life. I didn't even know there was a Wright sister. I had no idea. I actually didn't know there were other Wright brothers either, to be fair. You'd hear about Orville and Wilbur, and that's it. So how did you come to hear about Catherine? Or no?
I have to say, I always had sort of a thing for Orville and Wilbur. They were so quirky. I like quirky people. And so I had read about them before, but then I read the great McCullough book about them. And in it, they had this little, he wrote just a little bit about their sister, Catherine, who went to college. The boys, as they were called, didn't. And she got married at 52. None of Wilbur, Orville, and she hadn't married. And there's really no evidence of any kind of relationships. And she got married at 52, and Orville refused to speak to her ever again, which is, I personally related to this because my first husband died and I got married again in my 50s, and my brother and sister were very happy, which seems to be normal. And especially Orville had known the man that Catherine married. So I just got it I just couldn't get it out of my head. And then somebody knew I was kind of obsessed with Catherine and sent me a great postcard. I wish I had it, of Catherine at the White House in the early 1900s with Orville and Wilbur. And she had this great hat on. And I just thought, who is this woman? Why do we know nothing about her? And so I got up in the middle of the night and began writing letters to Orville. And I just kept writing them. So the book is imagined letters as well as a personal diary. But it's fiction. So it's different.
Right, it is fiction. First off, we have to say Michelle just said 52, and then she said, "Gives me faith." There you go. You know what, Michelle? I had this awesome great uncle, and he got married. His wife died when he was 80. I think he got married in his 80s, and they were very happy. So you never know. But yeah, for a woman, especially in that time period, to get married at 50, highly unusual, because very often you were considered unmarriageable by the time you turned, 30 or so. You were a spinster.
Yeah, and sort of they were all spinsters, and they lived in Dayton, Ohio. And so she moved 600 miles away to be with her new husband, Harry Haskell, to Kansas City. So that too was dramatic. So you understand in 1926, when she got married, even though the airplane had been invented, it was it was a long, several train rides away for her to do that and leave all her friends.
Right.
I couldn't do that.
Right, and then and Will was already had passed at that time, right? So Orville was her closest brother, and then he just cut her off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think, what would happen if her husband had moved to Dayton? I don't think that would have worked so well. But I mean,
right.
There's just no evidence that Orville ever spoke to her ever again. So she had this passionate love. I imagine it as passionate. I imagine it that it wasn't, just sort of colleagues. And so how wonderful. But then she would lose the love of her brother. And I think that's sort of joy and sorrow. Actually, we were talking about that right before, Carrie. That is the way it is. You think you have it all, and then wait, this tragedy is happening in the same day. Except she experienced that in her marriage.
Right. So is there any, I know it's fiction, but I am curious, I'm sure you did some research and some digging. What do we really, what do we know about Catherine, like really in the real world?
Well, in the real world, she was the youngest child of a reverend, and her mother died when Catherine was 14. And so she really took over the household. And so there were two older boys, and Wilbur and Orville, and the reverend. So she had a lot of housework to do. And yet the reverend encouraged her to go to college. She graduated Oberlin in 1898. It's a very liberal college. And she worked for the suffragist movement in Dayton, and got the vote, helped work for the vote in 1920. So those are facts. The other facts are that she did have a great deal to do with the boys' business and traveled with them to Europe. And she was the talker. Wilbur and Orville were almost pathologically shy. People often talked about that. And she spoke French, and she really was, and then she also was a school teacher, but teachers were not allowed, women teachers were not allowed to be married. So, yeah.
That's such a crazy, I know that was the case. And it's like, what a crazy, you'd almost think it should be the other way. You'd be a teacher if you weren't married, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it would mean you would be having sex. It would mean you might have children. And all those things you couldn't do if you were a good teacher. And that went on for decades. So that those things were true. And then the historical facts about the airplane. But I think she might have had more to do with the invention than people thought. But
I loved that you gave her that in this book, that, because she had to have been so smart to, go to college and speak the languages in that day, that means something more, I think, than it does now. So what a cool thing. And the other thing I love is that you gave her sexuality also, like even at 50.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Is that factual? Well, one fantastic thing, it's not about sex, but is that a few weeks ago, a woman contacted me, and her relative had been Catherine Wright's roommate at Oberlin College, and she has some real letters.
Oh my goodness!
At first I didn't want to read them because I thought, oh no, what if my voice is so off? But I got them, and I was reading them on my phone. What would Catherine Wright think about that? And then I scanned them and printed them, and she was a very smart woman, and she was talking about Harry Haskell, the man she marries, coming to dinner. So, but there is no evidence of her very passionate life that I've decided to create.
I love that you gave her that.
Thank you.
Would you be so lovely as to read the first entry in this book for us? I think it's a journal entry rather than a letter to Orv.
I'd love to.
That would be fantastic.
Let's see. So the first entry is November 21st, 1926. On November 20th, 1926, I was 52 when I got married for the first and only time to Harry Haskell. But my brother Orv, with whom I share a birthday, refused to attend the festivities. This was just yesterday at 4 p.m. When Orv heard of my upcoming nuptials last year, he smashed the blue and white Limoges china pitcher full of daisies against the wall of our summer house on Lake Huron. Everyone in the world knows Orv as the Wright brother who has a mustache and wears zigzag socks, ones that I knit every year with the soft yarn from the sheep outside of Dayton he insists upon because of his sensitive feet. The flowers scattered like an exploded bridal bouquet as the water and bits of china littered the floor. It has occurred to me more than once that although Orv is brilliant, ingenious, extraordinary, and able to study the subtle arc of a seagull's wings and to create an invention that has changed the entire planet, unfortunately, he might also be insane. I do not say such a thing lightly or with any disrespect. I love Orv in what some say is an uncommon love, but I think all love is uncommon if it is worth its salt. I'm calling this diary my marriage diary, as conjugal life is such a new adventure for me. I do not know how I will fare with this curious tie that binds. This diary is nothing fancy, just a worn, toffee-colored notebook I have saved from my Oberlin days. There's a nifty envelope inside the back cover where I keep some precious drawings of my scribbles and designs. I'm writing in the most beautiful heron blue ink that Orv gave me as a Christmas gift just 2 years ago, when my life seemed to be quite humdrum after years of living with the most famous brothers to ever leave the earth. I keep the diary in a locked box with copies of letters I've begun to write to Orv, not that I imagine Harry would be interested. I vow to take these new seasons of my life, fall and winter, and begin anew, to be bold where I have been timid and strong where I have hesitated. I've always been a woman of science and scholarly pursuits, along with my work for the rights of women. But in my new life, I hope to be able to write some truths about another kind of rights, secrets, both professional and personal, aspects that have been previously hidden. We discussed much in the Wright household, but there was much we did not say. It will not come easily to me to reveal what was for so long concealed, as I am the Reverend's daughter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love how this leads us into her world. And we learn about her just by little bits and pieces, and also so much interesting stuff about the brothers and the family through this series of journal entries and letters that she writes to Orv. And she develops so beautifully over the course of the book. So it's fascinating, and I love the voice, and I love the character you've created for her. She's a strong woman, and she's very intelligent. And I just love the idea that she had more to do with the airplane than we know, because I want to believe that now to be true.
I hope that that's true. But I also think, she was torn really between two centuries. If she was born not so long after the Civil War, and then she, was in the greatest invention in the world, but I don't think they knew what the airplane would cause for the whole world. I think it was before World War I and II. And so it's just as with the invention of the computer, what have they wrought? Right. I also think that she was, she was brought in a religious household, the daughter of a reverend, but then being married, I think she thought maybe she should be somewhat traditional. I mean, the fact that she got married, and she married a widower. And I think I touch on that. I've heard from a number of people who've married widowers, if somebody's been in a very long marriage and then you go into their house, it's sort of a tricky thing, because that woman, it's different than divorce, where the husband might be disparaging of the first wife. And so in some ways, the first wife is elevated. And that's I haven't read much about that, but I imagine, because I've I'm experiencing it too in my marriage to somebody who was married before for a long time. It's just interesting.
Yeah, that person is always there.
They're always there, and they might be your good friend. I mean, so when I first met my current husband, we talked a lot about our first husband and first wife, and we still have photographs up of all of them, because these are the stories of our lives. But sometimes some jealousy creeps up, and I tried to write about that.
Sure, I love that you had Catherine draw, or she talked of painting a picture with all four of them, or being her person. Was there any indication anywhere of any sort of improper relationship between the two of them, that he would therefore have been so angry about her leaving?
I mean, I think that's an interesting question, Carrie. I mean, I certainly never read any documents that said there was anything incestuous, but it was extremely close. I mean, there are people I know who the grown siblings live together, and sort of instead of turning outward, they're more inward, and I think that certainly was going on. Occasionally, there were photographs, and they were superstars all over the world, and occasionally people mistook Catherine and Orville as husband and wife. In other countries, they would label the picture that way. I don't personally believe that there was anything sexual going on.
There was anything like that. The way you've portrayed Orv in this book, it actually reminds me of Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but yeah. So, Sheldon just gets that mad because, his roommate is moving across the hall, right? So you can see that how that could happen with somebody with that kind of a genius personality.
I mean, I used a little bit of people I know, but also myself in these characters. I have trouble moving and with change, and Orville was excessively neat. If you go to Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, there's a recreation of the cabin the boys lived in, and all the cans are lined up. And I tend to do that too. And my husband is a mess. He is a journalist, as was Harry Haskell, the man Catherine marries. So as I did research, it became more like my life. And he's taking the newspaper from him when he's reading. Are you done with this? Are you done with this?
It's funny how little bits of our lives creep in. I do want to talk to you about your other books. So this is not the first thing that you've written. So tell us a little bit about some of the other books that are out there.
This is my seventh book. I started writing in my early 20s. I vowed to publish by the time I was 30. I did not. I think I was about 36. And I was, and the book was Mermaids, which was turned into a movie, which was all a little overwhelming, All
right. Now I'm going to stop right now because you guys might miss this. So when she says Mermaids turned into a movie, this is the movie Mermaids, with a star you might have heard of in it.
Cher.
By the name of Cher. Yeah.
Winona Ryder was 18.
Oh my gosh.
And it was Christina Ricci's first movie. And one of the reasons she was chosen is she's a wonderful actress, is she could swim. The little girl swims in a lot, and so she had to swim in the movie. And so I wrote the book, and it was published, and I was very lucky. And it was translated and to different languages, and then different actresses were interested in it. I'd be like putting socks together, and they'd say Barbara Streisand's interested, and it's like, okay. And then Cher was, and then it happened because Cher said it was very much like her childhood of moving across the country with her mother and sister. In fact, my life, we lived in one town, but it was kind of a hectic household, so I just decided to make them move a lot in this novel. I did grow up next door to a convent, and used to take walks with the nuns. And so I set it next door to a convent in a imaginary town in Massachusetts. So,
wow. So, as an author myself, I know we all dream of having a movie made out of our book. I mean, although I have this fear that if it ever happens, I'll hate the movie. But I just, it's such an exciting thing, and it was your first book. And did you get to meet the actresses at all or anything?
Yeah, I did. It was shot in New England, and before they do the whole movie, they do a read through, and so I went up for that and spent about a week with them, and they were all great. And Bob Hoskins, it was the sort of love interest in the shoe store, and Cher was great, and Christina Ricci, and it was very exciting and a bit overwhelming. And then the first time I saw the movie, I saw it without music. And I don't know, for those of you who've seen the movie, there's a lot of great, dancing, and so that was a little overwhelming because I certainly didn't have that soundtrack in my head.
Right.
So, it took me a while to, now sometimes it's on television. I watch it. But it took me a while.
Here's the other thing I'm thinking, though. If that was your first book and it was so successful and it got made into a movie and it was such a big, was that hard to write the next book then? Because pressure is not our friend.
That's a good question. It was not an easy time in my life. I was, sort of lonely and overwhelmed. But I had been working on it all through my 20s and through graduate school and then my early 30s. So I wasn't that young. And I had written 2 other books I didn't sell. I think it was difficult for people now wanting me to do the same thing. And obviously the 7th book is completely different, a historical novel. But each one of my books I'm not someone where the publisher can say, oh, okay, stay in this lane. I've written, about adopting my son, a book. So I write fiction, nonfiction, personal essays, the few modern love essays in the Times. I just can't write on command. And to keep me centered, I teach writing workshops. And so it's exciting when something good happens, but I began writing on a typewriter. And if you got a bad review, you just tore it up. No more. If you get
right. The bad reviews now, they're kind of there forever, but I just try not to look at them.
Yeah. So it was overwhelming. It was a little bit of a shaky time. So it really taught me to just do my work and teach and try to enjoy life as much as I can and not get too swayed by the success or the failure.
Right, exactly. I love that you are just, have been writing whatever grabs your attention and not allowing yourself to be shoved into a box. That makes me really happy, actually, because it's really, I believe it. We're here for a short time to do what lights us up, and allowing someone else to decide for us what that ought to be. What fun is that? So, pursuing what grabs your interest. I'm a fan of that. I think that's
I'm glad, because as you know, it's a long haul to write a book. It's many drafts, and you have to really be passionately interested in it. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
Right. Yeah. I'm totally with you. If I always say this, if I hate what I'm doing, then it would just be much easier for me to go work a day job full time again, because, the money would be more consistent or reliable. Mm-hmm. And, if I'm going to be miserable, then I don't want to do what I'm doing. So if I don't want to write it, I'm not going to write it. That's
why. I don't think so. Also there's so much suffering going on always, but now with COVID, and how lucky we are that people are still reading. it's not an industry that's going away.
Right.
So I feel very fortunate.
Right. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm reading now more than ever. I mean, that's my comfort space. So if I need to get away, have a little escape, get myself in a better space, I'm just doing it with a book. So is that true for you as well?
Yeah, I think that is true. At the beginning of the pandemic, I switched to Zoom. I teach these writing workshops. My students said they couldn't focus, and I think that was very common. And now people are sort of combining reading and Netflix, and sometimes people say they just want a longer work to get into. Other people are just reading shorter amounts of time, and I'm tending. So this is the first book I've ever done that was letters, and then I went back and read The Color Purple, and I had just read On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I mean, I like books of letters, epistolary letters. I write short books anyway, but I sort of like the format of letters or diary entries. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, so you did what you loved with this book, which is just real awesome and amazing. So, are you working on another book right now?
I am. I came across actually. I tend to write fiction and then nonfiction, so I don't know if this book will fly, as it were, but so I have to get a whole draft done. But there's another woman in history who's kind of intriguing to me. So I've been doing research and trying to scribble a little each day. Yeah, so that I don't want to
tell us. You don't want to tell us any more about that right now. No, that's cool. I get that totally.
Because I've written so much that I haven't published. So I'd rather just wait till it's cooked. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I hear you. If I talk about my stuff too early, it just kills it dead for me. There's for me, I should ask you about this. I'm not much of a plotter person. I do kind of plot, but it's about the character and the idea and the energy and the excitement. And I like finding out what's happening as I write. And if I talk about it too much, all of that magic goes away. And then it's just like, I don't feel like it anymore. So
I'm totally with you on that. I mean, I wish I could write from an outline, but I was the kind of kid in school when you had to hand in outlines, I'd write the paper first and then write the outline. So
yes, me too. That's exactly what I did.
Remember those Roman numerals and things? I haven't said that word in a long time, but no, I just sort of go with it. I don't know who was it said, if there's no surprise for the writer, there's no surprise for the reader. I mean, especially in this book, I kept finding things in my research and in my head that, I often think that writing is, I wrote another book, it's called The Butterfly Hours, about writing. And I often think it's like those power floor polishers, which I've never used, but I remember just sort of trying to use one once, and you're sort of pulled along, and that's how writing is for me. And I just don't know what I'm doing for a lot of time. It's a lot of drafts, very messy.
Yeah, me too. But you know what? I like it that way. And even when I try, okay, so for example, I'm with Lake Union right now. So when I submit a new book to them, what they want is like 3 chapters and a synopsis. And what they want in the synopsis is the whole story. So it's very funny because I sit down and I just make something up and I send it to them. Fortunately, my editor knows it's what she gets is not going to look at all like that by the time I'm done. Because I
totally get that. I've never sold a book on the basis. I mean, that's great that you can do that. I've always had to finish the whole book because they've always been a little bit quirky. I don't even know how, you pitch this book, but so I have to write the whole thing, and then I often rewrite the beginning.
Right.
Because I don't know quite what it's about.
Yeah. I tend to have to do or get to do that too. The beginning often changes. Need to. Yeah. How do you really know for sure what the beginning is until you know what the end is?
Exactly. And I think, for me, the book has to have a major conflict, and I'm not sure what it is. I'm sort of finding my way, and then I put that in the opening. And this Catherine is really torn between these two men.
Right.
I think.
Right. Yeah. She is. And that sets that up really well. So, well, a couple more quick questions for you, just so that we know. Do you, any pets hanging out with you, or do you have any animals in your house?
Right now, there is just one very old cat. But yeah, that's all that's here now. And it's usually on the computer. But
on your computer. Yeah, I have one that likes to do that too. She likes to lie just right so her head is on my hand while I'm trying to type.
Yeah.
But we have the new puppy now, which is kind of wreaking havoc with the cats. They're not too sure about this program. So they're making
Can we
themselves.
see the new puppy or no? Would that
Sorry, what about the puppy?
Could we see the new puppy or no?
No, I'm actually, I have to leave my house to do anything that's internet intensive, because we live in the middle of a mountain space where the only internet I can get is satellite. And it would just be glitching all over the place if I were trying to do this from home. So I actually keep a little bit of space in the small town where I live. And yeah, so I come down here to do these kinds of things. Michelle wants to know if it was Catherine with a Y or Catherine with an E, and it's actually an A, right? So Catherine, K-A-T-H-A.
K-A-T-H-A-R-I-N-E.
Right.
Catherine.
Cool. Oh, hi, Diana. We have somebody showing up here just right at the end, but that's okay. Diana, you'll have to go back and listen. This is awesome. Where can readers find and connect with you, Patty? Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's Patty with a Y, pattydan.com. And you can find links to my books there and my classes. And if you want to contact me, pattydan.com.
Okay, and then do you hang out on Facebook or Instagram or any of
that? Yeah, Facebook, yeah. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but I don't have too much of a following. I'd love to meet new people. Sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. And Patty, for those of you listening, so Patty is PattyDann.com. And then you're just Patty Dann on Facebook as well, Facebook page. Okay.
On Instagram, it's Patty Dann Writer, and Facebook, Patty Dann. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd love to
awesome. And again, you guys, the book is The Wright Sister, which is about Orville and Wilbur's sister. And it's just, I'm so delighted that somebody wrote this book for her, because I feel like she was, shadowed and in the dark. I do have to do a little plug for my new book, because we're here. So A Borrowed Life is now out in stores, so you can grab your copy. And that is actually about it today. So thank you so much, Patty, for being here. I really appreciate it. It was lovely to get to know you a little bit.
Thank you, Karen. It's great to be here.
All right. Thank you to my listeners who are here today, and those of you who are listening to the podcast, feel free to drop me a line as well if you wish. I am at carrieannking.com, and I will see you all again next week with another awesome guest. So go read a good book, take care, and I will see you again soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.